and I went on a teacher training program with Gurudev directly. And what really attracted me, definitely the techniques were very, very powerful. And the deep rest I experienced from the technique was amazing. But I was very attracted to Gurudev as a individual, as a teacher. He has this incredible understanding about the human condition that I have not experienced with any other individual. Somehow he understands every nook and cranny of the mind and the life experience. And the knowledge that he shares about this has been very, very transformational in my life.
How do you go from being an advertising executive to working at the Art of Living Foundation?
Well, I guess I was extremely lucky. Back in 1988, I met Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar in Los Angeles, in Santa Monica. I was actually in a health food store in the food co-op in Santa Monica, and I was looking for the perfect wheat-free, sugar-free, taste-free cookie. And I collided hearts with this woman, and she told me about the art of living, and it sounded totally amazing for me. So I went to a public talk that Gurudev was giving at the time. I was completely blown away. I learned Sudarshan Kriya, or sky meditation, the core essence of the program. And it was just a journey.
Very interesting. And so what exactly is the Art of Living Foundation? It's like a meditation center or like a yoga center or
Yeah, so the Art of Living Foundation is a nonprofit educational and humanitarian organization. We're a global organization. We're probably in every major metropolitan environment around the world, over 147 countries. In Los Angeles, we actually have a physical center in the West Adams district near USC. But we also have retreat centers around the country. We have one in North Carolina, in Washington, D.C., in Quebec, we have a retreat center, and in many, many places around the world. So the core essence of the Art of Living Foundation is to provide tools for people to manage stress, anxiety, insomnia, and the ability to manage one's mind and emotions just through meditation and breath work.
very interesting. So, okay, so the tools for stress management and anxiety, etc., those mostly would be breathwork and meditation, or are there any others?
Well, there's knowledge about yourself. So, raising your level of consciousness, self awareness, but that primarily happens automatically through the deep experience of meditation. You know, so many people have attempted to meditate, and meditation is definitely a buzzword, and we understand the science behind it and the value for it. But so many people have a really hard time meditating. How do I settle my own mind so I could have that deep experience? So, through the breath, we're able to get an individual to a space where meditation happens automatically. So, I would say without breath work, it's like putting frozen butter on cold toast. And with breath work, it's melted butter on hot toast. It just becomes such a natural, smooth, easy phenomenon in meditation.
Interesting. How does someone know if they are meditating or not meditating? Like you just sit there and how would you know if it's working?
Well, first of all, let's define what meditation is. Meditation is a deep state of rest. And that state of rest is different than that state of rest you experience during sleep. During sleep, there's just that experience of not knowing who you are at all. What's a good night's sleep? Your head hit the pillow, you woke up in the morning, and you don't remember anything. Somebody says, "Did you sleep well?" Well, I have no idea if I slept well. I don't remember anything at all, right? But meditation is very different. Meditation is restful alertness. So the mind is alert, but it's also completely at a state of deep rest. And that experience, that balance of restful alertness, is completely rejuvenating to the entire nervous system.
Why is that such a powerful tool to manage stress and rejuvenate the nervous system, would you say?
I think that's the key. The key is rest, deep rest, having the mind experience inner stillness. The mind is chattering all the time. It's
Hmm.
always trying to figure something out. It's not in the present. For most of us, the mind is either in the past or it's in the future. We're regretting something that happened yesterday or even before that, or we're anxious about the future. So
Hmm.
whether you're listening to me or your audience is listening to me, what's happening in the mind right this moment? There's so many thoughts, so much. What's my next question? What am I going to do next? Oh, he reminds me of something I heard years ago. All this mental chatter. And then there's the self-talk, blaming yourself, being angry about yourself, judging other people. Very rarely do we have an opportunity to experience the now as it is. And that's what meditation is, taking all of those filters off, all that static activity that goes on in the mind, so that you could experience inner stillness.
Before you got to the Art of Living Foundation, were you meditating and doing yoga already?
I was actually for 12 years, I had been meditating. I had gone to India. I had lived at an ashram somewhere, and I was pretty happy with my meditation practice.
Hmm.
But then when I learned sky, it was like a quantum leap. It just accelerated everything in such an incredible way. So my meditation became so much more profound, so much deeper. And also, what I found was that experience of stillness that I was having in meditation, it started to integrate into daily life.
Interesting. Um, and you still meditate to this day?
Oh, yeah, every day. I
Every day.
meditate twice a day, morning, afternoon, before breakfast, before dinner. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask you is what is your meditation schedule? So is that the first thing you do every day when you wake up?
Well, it sometimes is. Sometimes I go to the gym first and then I meditate. It depends.
Got you. And how long are you usually in meditation?
Well, for the average person, if you could dedicate 20 minutes twice a day, I think that would be ideal. And
20
everybody
minutes.
has 20 minutes.
Yeah. 20 minutes twice a day. What is the saying? I think they say if you don't have time to meditate, then you definitely need to meditate. Is that how the saying goes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's Well, if they haven't said it yet, you're the first to say it, and I agree with you.
Yeah, thank you. So tell me, what is the sky sort of method that you discovered?
Well, I didn't discover it. I learned it from Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, who I would consider to be a master of understanding the mind, the emotions, and just guiding a clear pathway forward to experience the most joy, being the most dynamic, most creative, most practical lifestyle. So he came up with this breathing technique, Sudarshan Kriya. Su means proper, Darshan means vision, Kriya means purifying action. So it's an action that we take with the breath that gives us a proper vision of who we really are. So he was going through a 10-day period of silence and seclusion. And the way he explains it, it came to him as a poem, like a spontaneous knowing. And he started teaching this technique. So, there's a rhythm to everything in creation. The sun rises at a certain time, it sets at a certain time. Like that, seasons come and go in time. So there's also a rhythm to our breath. There's a rhythm to our thoughts, a rhythm to our feelings. There's also a rhythm to the being, that inner stillness. So in this technique, Sky, Siddharshan Kriya, you go deep into the rhythm of the being. And it's amazing. It's like all these negative emotions and toxins that we've been holding on to in our body, they get released through the breath. If you think about it, when there's an infant or when we were infants and you had something that was disturbing you and you started crying, what happens when you're crying? Do the parents encourage you to cry and get those feelings out as an infant? No, they pick the baby up and they pat it and they go, shh, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. So even as an infant, what do you learn? Don't express those negative emotions, suppress it. Then you get a little older, maybe you're 5 years old or 6 years old, and you want to play with some kids and they don't like you and they bully you or something. But if you cry, they're going to take more advantage of you. So what do? You learn, stuff it, push it down. Then you get a little older, you're 17 years old, and you have a crush on some boy or some girl, and you want to be cool. What does cool mean? Let me not show my feelings. I'll just push it down. So again, suppression. Then you get married. What do? Express your emotions in your marriage? Well, you can, but then that destroys the relationship. Or you have a job, a 9-to-5 job, and you hate your job and you start expressing your emotions, you're considered unstable, right? So what does it mean to be a professional? Push it down, right? Stuff it. So for almost our entire lifetime, we have been suppressing our emotions, let alone if you go through a traumatic experience or you have very difficult, challenging situations. How do we manage our own mind and our own emotions? What is the healthiest way to eliminate those emotional impressions from the nervous system? Usually, we haven't learned this in school, nor do we learn it at home. Our parents didn't know how to manage their own minds. But through the breath, it's such a powerful tool. We take it for granted, but the breath is so powerful in eliminating those emotional impressions in such a natural way. You're not even aware of the phenomenon. All you're aware of is that deep experience of rest, tranquility, and peace. And then that carries out into the day, throughout the day.
Fascinating. Can you describe to the audience, like, what is this breath technique? For someone who maybe doesn't know what breath work is, and to my knowledge, there's many different types of breaths if you're working in the kind of breath work umbrella. So what is the method that that Sky is working with?
Well, you're right. There are numerous different breathing techniques. And traditionally, in yoga, there's something that's called pranayama.
Mhm.
Prana is the life force energy. Yama is controlling that life force energy. And there are dozens of different pranayama techniques to raise the life force energy. This is something that's very different than pranayama. Pranayama involves breath control in some way. Sudarshan Kriya, or Sky, is a rhythmic breathing technique.
Mhm.
And I could talk about it, but that doesn't really give the experience of what the technique. If you're interested or your listeners are interested, I would suggest that you learn it. It's taught in a 3-day format. Each It's 3 consecutive days, and each day is about 2.5 hours. And if you go to artofliving.org, which is the website, artofliving.org, you can find a course that would work for you.
Okay, fascinating. Yeah, I have personally, I like doing breath work, but I don't know how to explain to people like the science, if you will, of like why do I enjoy this so much? And I'll give you an example. Maybe you've heard of this, or seen this technique, but the one that I really like is when they have you lay down flat on your back and you take two breaths in and one breath out. And so you inhale into your stomach and then you inhale into your chest and then you exhale. And you lay on your back for maybe about an hour doing that. And at the end, you will feel like high on life. Like I almost, it's like you said, it's like indescribable. It's like you have to experience it to really get it. But do you have, in the work you've done, have you guys discovered any sort of like scientific or Western explanation? Like, why is this? Why do we like? Why do I like it?
Well, for the sky technique, there are over 100 published peer review studies that have been done on the technique and how the what the benefits are. It ranges from helping people with depression, anxiety, PTSD, trauma, um, and social interaction, feeling more connected to people.
Mhm.
So if someone's interested, they could go to our website, look up all the research on it. I'm not a scientist, but I don't think anybody really understands, well, why does the technique work?
Yeah.
We can see what the benefits are. But one thing that I think is very interesting is there was a study done in Europe maybe about 10 years ago. And what they did was they wanted to show the connection between rhythms of breath and emotions. So, what they did is they had various subjects look at films or photographs of different emotions to invoke those emotions. And what they saw that every emotion had a corresponding rhythm of breath. When you're angry, you breathe very differently than when you're relaxed, right? When you're angry, it's much rapid, more fiery. When you're relaxed, it's longer, smoother breaths. So they could clearly determine that every emotion has a rhythm of breath. But then they did it in the opposite way. They made people breathe in those specific rhythms of breath. And what they found was that it evoked particular emotional experiences by breathing in those ways. So you could say that Sky incorporates that science because during Sky, there are different rhythms of breath that we teach people, and you're breathing, it's a rhythmic breathing technique. And I think that's why all those emotions get released through the breath.
Yeah, it's fascinating. That's a really cool study. I never heard of that, but I total it makes total sense as you explain it. And I find it fascinating too, because I always thought about like the breath that I really like doing with the two breaths in and then one breaths out. It reminds me of like, I don't know if you or anyone out there listening remembers like when you were a kid and maybe you were crying, and as you were calming down from it, you have this kind of automatic like 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 double
Yeah,
inhale.
absolutely. And you notice if when you're a little kid, you can't even express your emotions. Like little kids don't know what anger is, they experience more sadness. And you know, that sadness is more even in the throat. So little kids will go, "Ugh," and there's like almost like a sniffing that's going on. So, yeah, we could
Yeah.
learn so much just from observing our breath. It's phenomenal. We take it for granted. But if you think about it, what was the very first thing you did when you came into this world? Took a breath in. And the
Hmm.
last thing we're going to do before we expire is breathe out. So, from that first act to our last act, it's all about breathing. And how we breathe makes a difference in how we feel.
I also find it fascinating how you mentioned bringing awareness to the breath. And I'm reminded, we're talking about like, oh, when you were a kid, it felt like this and you breathed like this. I am actually suddenly in this conversation reminded of when I was a kid, I used to struggle with migraines. And I never knew anything about meditation or breath work until much, much, much later in my life. This is all new to me. But when I was a kid, I remember I figured out that I could make the headache less if I just focused on nothing but my breath and just put all my attention into the sort of in and out of breathing. So maybe I was teaching myself meditation at a young age.
Perhaps a prodigy.
Yeah. I wonder, you mentioned you were explaining about how, throughout our life we're kind of forced or told to kind of hold things in and suppress things. And one of the things that you mentioned is that we never learn about any of this in school. And the more podcasts I do, and I talk to a lot of people who talk about meditation and breath work and alternative healing modalities, and the more down this road I go with guests and my own personal exploration of life, I start to wonder, like, why don't they teach any of this stuff in school? Like, I kind of have this new opinion forming that, like, instead of detention, there should be like meditation. Instead of like sit in the corner, it's like maybe like sit in a circle with other people and focus on your breath. And I'm curious, like, do you have any opinion about that, or do you have any programs for young people? Like, I think it could be such a more interesting country and world that we could be living in if we started teaching this to people at a much younger age.
Well, Jeff, I'm going to vote for you to be on the school board. Definitely, you've gotten my vote. And yes, you're right. In fact, we teach a program called the Sky Schools Program, and we teach this in inner cities to school kids, anywhere from around age 8 onward. We also teach a program in universities. It's taught in over 300 universities around the United States. So, and it really is making a real big difference. And just what you said, I actually was in one of the schools where we teach Sky Schools on the elementary school level. And
Mm.
there was an altercation that happened in the school where two kids got into a fight. And I was in the principal's office. I was just talking to her. And instead of sending the kids to detention, what they did is they had both kids sit down and do 5 minutes of breathing. And afterwards, the two kids shook hands and said, "Hey, sorry about that." And they went off to their class. And I was like, wow, even though it's an organization that I support, seeing it in action, it totally blew my mind. And
Beautiful.
then on the university level, I mean, it is amazing that kids that are going to college now are suffering from so much anxiety and um, depression and feeling disconnected on the social level. More and more young people are experiencing loneliness, are experiencing fear, feeling unsettled with everything that's going on in the world. They don't know if they're coming or going. And we have found that our university program has really helped young people tremendously. And I
Beautiful.
think and I think you have such an advantage in life if you could learn this at an early age.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to. There was one thing I made a note here that you mentioned as you were talking about your journey and meeting your teacher. I forget how to pronounce his name. Um,
Gurudev, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. It's a
yes.
it's it's a lot to say. We could just refer to him as Gurudev.
Yes. So, but one of the things that you said that I made a note of here is um he knew who he was, and I just wrote who we really are. And so like can you talk a little bit about like what does that mean to you to know for someone to know who they really are?
Well, if we were to look at it and define ourselves, are you just your body? And if I am my body, which body am I? Am I the body that was 17 years old? Is it the body that was 25 years old? It's the body that's 50 years old. My body is constantly changing, like everyone else's body. We know that we look different. If you go back on your social media page, like Facebook, and you see what you look like a year ago or 2 years ago, you go, oh my God, I've changed so much. So I know I can't be my body because my body's constantly changing. Well, then, am I my thoughts? Well, my thoughts are constantly changing. What I thought about yesterday and what I even thought about an hour is very different than what I'm thinking about today. What was important to me when I was 20 and what was important to me when I'm 40 is very different than who I am now. I don't even think about those things. So I can't be my thoughts. That's transient. What about feelings? Well, yesterday I was happy, and then I'm sad, and then I'm angry. Feelings are coming and going, they're very transient. So then, who am I? I can recognize that I'm not my thoughts. I can recognize that I'm not my feelings. I know I'm not my body, but yet there's something about me, and I'm assuming this is for everybody, that you know that's you. You know you've changed, but there's some aspect of yourself where you feel as though I haven't changed. What is that? What is that aspect of ourself that's not changing? Well, we could refer to that as consciousness, or we can refer to it as being. We're human beings. We know what the human part is, but what's the being? The being is never changing. So in meditation, you get in touch with that aspect of yourself that's not changing. From an intellectual perspective, we could think about it, we could even debate it. But when you experience that inner quietness, that stillness inside, then you have an actual experience of who I really am.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Um, so are there any other tools other than meditation and breath work that you that Sky is sharing for like stress management, anxiety? I think I saw on your website that you guys have a protocol for like sleep and anxiety. So are there any other tools or tips and tricks that you can share with the audience other than breathing and meditation?
I think breathing and meditation is the essence. And just collecting tools, collecting modalities, well, you have a nice collection of things, but what are you practicing on a day to day basis? For
Mm,
me, the art of living treasure chest of modalities work perfectly for me. But I think everybody is an individual. And I
mm.
think it would be really important to find something that works for you that you can practice on a regular basis. And you'll know it's the right technique for you because it feels right, it feels good. And that would be the most important thing. But I can give some guidelines. I think that it's very important to find something that's rooted in a tradition. I
Mm.
think just learning something that somebody made up, um, and they're doing it for the purpose of financial gain, that doesn't seem very attractive to me. But finding something in a tradition, something that's connected in an ancient tradition, that seems of great value because there's been years and years of this being passed down from tradition. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's something that's really, really valuable. And I think it's also valuable to learn something from an actual teacher that has been trained in that tradition. So definitely you can learn from a podcast and you can learn from a YouTube video, but go a little deeper. Actually take a course from somebody who's experienced in it. Because otherwise, what happens if you have questions, if you don't know if it's really working for you, it needs some modification of some sort? That personal connection, I think, is really essential.
Yeah, I agree. And I really appreciate what you said about sort of rooting in tradition. There's in this world in the West and on the internet and with AI and ChatGPT and YouTube, it's like you can kind of like a la carte your way into like anything you want. But I think I appreciate what you said about being rooted in a tradition and, you know, finding something that's sort of stood the test of time. And typically there is a reason why something may have lasted thousands of years.
And you know what? I'll give you one other tip, which I think is important. If I was going to start meditating right now,
Mhm.
find something that has a really good reputation. And in this day and age, you can look that up online right away and find that out. And if something doesn't have a great reputation, why do you want to get involved with that if it's controversial in some way? So, ancient
Yeah.
tradition, being able to take a class with an instructor to get guidance really has a great reputation.
Yeah, beautiful. So, and you guys are, I understand, are you providing resources for people that have been affected by the Los Angeles fires?
Absolutely. We have been offering free courses to anybody in Los Angeles. And we've been doing this for 2 months now. And we could provide that link for people who are interested.
Yeah, I would love to put that in the sort of description, and it's anyone in LA, and you don't have to sort of like show your ID, like your address that my house is burned down or anything like that.
No, because we feel as though this has affected everybody in the community.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite a traumatic January. So, what kind of in the courses is it like teaching the breath practice, teaching the meditation?
Yeah, it's our Art of Living course. Just what I've been talking about. You learn
Yeah,
sky breath meditation. And then you have what's wonderful about the practice is so the practice is completed, and now you can practice it on your own at home. We also offer an app. It's called the Journey app. You can download that from any app store. And we have people online guiding you through the home practice. So if you need that additional support, and then once you've learned the technique, you can come back on a weekly basis and do the practice in a community as well. So there's definitely ongoing support, which I think is really critical.
yeah, amazing. Do you think once someone has learned the practice and they can do it on their own, do you think is there some more power or some benefit to also doing it in a group setting?
Absolutely. I think that has been proven over and over again that meditating in a group is much more powerful than doing it on your own. And
Mhm.
also the social connection, and you feel like you're going somewhere and doing something. But you know, that group experience, what we found during COVID, we didn't want to shut down. And actually, we taught so many people during COVID, we did it all online, and
Yeah.
that group connection of meditating online together was very, very powerful.
I have heard that they've done studies on group meditation and found that when people all sit in the same room in silence together, weird things will start to happen, like their heartbeats will start to synchronize and things like that. Have you heard of anything like that?
Yeah. And also the expansion and the deep rests that the mind has. It becomes a very deep, deep experience.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And so,
You know,
speaking of,
we had the World Culture Festival in Washington, D.C., where there were over 1 million people who gathered for this event. And we had the largest US guided group meditation ever. It
Wow.
was extraordinary. There's been a series of events, World Culture Festival, that's happened in different parts of the world. We had it in India, and that was 3.5 million people sitting together and meditating. That's
Wow.
a group meditation, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Are you an LA native? And I noticed that you do work in Washington, D.C. So I'm wondering if you're from there or if you're sort of, if your collective felt the need to target like that area for a certain reason.
Well,
Also,
I'm a New Yorker.
okay,
And
you're a New
if
Yorker.
you're not picking up on that, then I take great pride in the fact that I've been able to cover up my New York City accent,
Yeah.
which was very heavy when I was a young man. No, I moved to Los Angeles, and I've traveled all over the world teaching meditation,
Yeah.
but I reside here in LA. And we have so many instructors. We do have a center in Washington, D.C., and we have a lot of activity going on there as well.
Yeah. I grew up in a suburb of Washington, D.C., so I'm a fellow East Coaster.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Where in DC?
I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Oh, yeah. Lovely place.
Yeah. But I was just, as you were talking about doing meditation events there, I started to wonder, I feel like, maybe all the politicians and the lawyers could use more of this type of practice. So I wasn't sure if that was like targeted for a reason or it's just kind of one of the places where you ended up.
I think there's something to it being the nation's capital.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And you guys are also working with like addiction recovery right now?
Well, that's the project that I'm focused on right now. It's called the Sky Recovery Program, and this is a similar program, the same breathing technique, but it is geared towards individuals who have substance abuse issues. And we have been teaching in recovery centers around the United States. We've also offered this in many, many different places in the world. And I would say that it's the most rewarding work that I have ever done. And to see the transformation in the lives of people who have, to a certain extent, really reached rock bottom, and all the challenges they've had where substances have taken over their lives. And it is not in replacement for any other kind of therapy. It goes in conjunction with traditional therapy. But what we're finding is that individuals who are in recovery, the relapse rate is extraordinarily high. 85% of individuals who go through recovery relapse within the first 6 weeks of being sober.
Wow.
So something is definitely missing from the recovery science to help people manage sobriety.
Mhm.
And what I see is that, you know, once you become addicted to some substance, why did that happen? Okay, there are physiological factors, but the stress level in your life was so unsurmountable that taking a substance really became attractive to you. You felt as though, oh, I can cope with all these unpleasant feelings that I have by either drinking or smoking or taking some drug or something like that. I fit in, I'm capable of managing. But then the addiction happens. And once the addiction happens, you become really very stressed out just managing the addiction or not managing the addiction. And then you go through detox. Detox is so stressful to go through that. And then you go through recovery, and finally you leave the recovery center, and all the problems you had before you became addicted, they're still there. challenges with your family, challenges with self-esteem, challenges with your career or relationships. And okay, now you're sober, but all those challenges are still there. And if the stress level becomes very intense for you, then what do? You go back to what you know to manage stress, which is take a substance again. So it's a repetitive cycle. And
Mhm.
how can we break that cycle? I think by giving people tools to manage their own mind and emotions, to giving people tools to going into that deep, 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 relaxed space, that is so powerful for individuals. And what I find is very surprising is that um, I really didn't know if individuals in a recovery center could actually do the practice and go into that state of deep meditation. But when I'm teaching the courses, what I feel like is I feel like I'm at an ashram, at a meditation camp. The depth of meditation that people are experiencing, it's just something extraordinary.
Amazing. I once heard a quote that said, addiction is the opposite of connection.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Out of curiosity, you're offering the free courses in LA. Do you know how long that will be available? And do people just go online if they want more information?
Yeah, it will be offered probably until the end of March. So
Gotcha.
we've done it for a 3 month period of time,
Gotcha. And are those in person or are they online?
both.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And so when you kind of discovered the Sky method and the Art of Living Foundation, this is, I think you said going back to 1988. Did you just feel like I need to share this with the world? And did you kind of leave like the business and advertising corporate world to kind of just help others? Or what was your kind of transition? Is this all that you do is teach meditation to people?
Yes, I've been full time with the Art of Living Foundation now for maybe 35 years.
Cool.
And when I first started, there were very few instructors. And I went on a teacher training program with Gurudev directly. And what really attracted me, definitely the techniques were very, very powerful. And the deep rest I experienced from the technique was amazing. But I was very attracted to Gurudev as a individual, as a teacher. He has this incredible understanding about the human condition that I have not experienced with any other individual. Somehow he understands every nook and cranny of the mind and the life experience. And the knowledge that he shares about this has been very, very transformational in my life.
Mhm.
And an opportunity to study with a living master, interacting with somebody who I feel is, for lack of better terms, living a state of grace.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe a little bit of it has rubbed off on me.
Yeah. I'm very curious about the kind of masters and the teachers and I hear about people, the more podcasts I do, I keep going down the road of like different healing modalities, yoga, breath work, even some like psychedelic people come on here. And the people who seem to be like the teachers who have it all figured out and that really just like, you just want to hear them speak and learn like they got the mind and the condition figured out. It's always not it's always someone who just kind of spontaneously got it after like, a year of meditation or something like that. Do you have any like opinion about how does someone figure this stuff out? Because I don't hear it. I don't get like a psychologist on here very often who became like the big, ascended master teacher. It's always someone who kind of spontaneously got it in a meditation retreat. So I'm just curious: what's the deal there? Like, why can't it be really learned in a book?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I have not gotten an invitation into the union yet. I haven't gotten a union card for Enlightened Master. When
Uh-huh.
I do, I will share that with you.
Yeah, please do.
I'm definitely a work in progress. But yeah, I think it's just a gift.
Uh,
And what I've experienced is that if you receive that gift, it's not a gift that you hoard for yourself, but something that you share with the rest of humanity.
Yeah, I really appreciate the honesty in your answer. So tell me, you're an author. Can you tell me a little bit about your book?
The book is called Stumbling into Infinity, An Ordinary Man in the Sphere of Enlightenment. And it is a memoir, but it reads more like a story than it does a memoir. And it is my journey on the spiritual path. And as I said before, I was very lucky to be there in the very early days with Gurudev,
Mhm.
and there were very, very few people around him at that time. And I think many people have a concept in their mind if they hear the word guru.
Mhm.
Oh, that's not for me. Definitely not for me. Oh, but what is it? What is it like to work with a living master? What happens behind closed doors with a student to elevate the student to their highest potential? And I wish I could tell you that I was the best student and I was the most perfect student, but I was just the opposite. I think if Gurudev had to make a list of his most challenging students, I would be number one in that category. Um, I would constantly be running into walls. I found living with more compassion, more love, more openness was quite a challenge for me. I didn't understand it at all. But yet, um, through his tremendous skill, I think he was really able to point me in the right direction in many, many ways.
Interesting. Um, yeah, a lot of people hear the word guru, especially out here in the West. I think they think like Osho, documentary, culty stuff. What's your opinion about what would you say to someone who kind of gets turned off by some of these terms?
Well, let's really think about it. Everything is a cult. Everything is a cult.
Yeah.
If you're a MAGA, that's a cult. If you're you know, a Christian, that's a cult. If you're Jewish, that's a cult. I mean, it's a group of people having a set ideology. Maybe you can see that as a cult. Being a Democrat is a cult. But is it if you're afraid of that concept? I think it can be very troublesome if it's very insular and it's all about us and not about them. If there's that separation, we're better than, we're different than, they're going to cause problems to us. But if it's very inclusive, if it's very sharing, if it's all about how can we live together in a world and uplift this world, well, then I think that's a good thing. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So, I think you also have to do a little homework,
Yeah.
no matter what group you get involved with, and see, okay, is this inclusive or is this exclusive?
Yeah. I like the idea too of like, honoring and respecting our differences while acknowledging that, separation may be a concept that we invented.
Yeah, and absolutely. And whatever your cultural integrity is, whatever your norms are you giving away your norms to be part of another group? So I think we have a fear of losing our freedom Am I going to have to shave my head? Am I going to have to wear certain types of clothes? Am I going to have to eat food that I don't like or that my parents never served me when I was a kid? And, what about chocolate cake? Is that included in the program? But if you can be yourself, whether you're Jewish or Christian or Protestant or Hindu, and grow just by closing your eyes for a few minutes a day and meditating, well, that seems like a win-win situation. There's nothing you need to give up, but only so much to gain in terms of ease of life, in terms of living with greater awareness, being more kind, more generous, more open, more loving.
Yeah. I really like the title Stumbling into Infinity. Um, how does the concept of infinity relate to the concept of enlightenment? And does meditation bring anyone closer to gripping the concept of infinity?
I think through meditation, you can experience infinity.
Hmm.
All those boundaries disappear. The boundaries of my body, my thoughts, my feelings, just space, just experiencing that infinite space, not journeying through the infinite space. It's not a psychedelic trip. It's just deep stillness. And the more you relax, the deeper you can be. Can I just share something with you? Do you know what the key to meditation is? Relaxation. Meditation is deep relaxation. And that's why one feels so much energy after they meditate. But what's funny is that we think just by closing our eyes, we should be able to relax. But that's not the case. You need to be able to relax so that you can relax. When you go to sleep at night, you do some things to prepare yourself for sleep, right? You wash your face, brush your teeth, fluff your pillow, pull the blankets, and sleep happens. Same thing with meditation. You need to prepare yourself for meditation. So traditionally, at least in the yogic tradition, there has been different things that prepare one to go deep into meditation. First is the physical, getting rid of the physical restlessness in the body. We know that as yoga. Yoga is what? Moving your body in different ways so that you can release the physical tension from your body. Usually at the end of a yoga class, oh, I feel so relaxed. But that's step one. Step two would be to increase the subtle life force energy or the prana. If the prana is very low, then you may just fall asleep in meditation. You won't have that liveliness. So then there comes some breathing techniques. But then there's the emotional stuff that in this day and age, almost everybody has. That's where the sky technique comes in place. And then by doing a little bit of stretching, a little bit of pranayama, Sudarshan Kriya, meditation, it just happens on its own. And then that deep rest is really experienced.
Fantastic. I love it. Do you think that the universe is infinite?
I think universe, infinity, they're synonymous.
It's the same thing. So, do you think that consciousness is infinite?
Consciousness is. I think once we start putting labels on consciousness, and I don't think we can really intellectually verbalize what consciousness is. It's really an experience.
Mm,
It's there, it's always there, but thinking about it and talking about it is not the same as experiencing it.
hmm. Wonderful. So, where can people find your book? Amazon?
Amazon would be a great place. Stumbling into Infinity by Michael Fischman.
Fantastic. I look forward to checking it out.
Yeah.
And what other people that want more resources, is it artoflifefoundation.org, or is there any
No,
other
it's
places?
it's it's Art of Living,
Art of
one
Living.
word, artofliving.org. And for those people who would like to check out the Sky Recovery Program, it's skyrecoveryprogram.org.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for coming on. I'm wondering, is there anything that we missed that we want to share with the world as we wrap this one up?
There's nothing to miss.
Everything is as it should be. The links will be in the show description. And yeah, thanks for coming on the podcast, my friend.
It was really fun talking to you, Jeff.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. And bye, everyone.